executive meeting and then we're finance council. Okay, Mike's live.
Mike's live.
Meeting is the meeting of the finance committee is called to order. I think because we've had several opportunities, we can skip the pledge in a moment of silence. Would you proceed with the roll call, please?
Commissioner Rexroth,
Present.
Commissioner Wessel,
Here.
Commissioner Lautner.
Present.
All present.
Next item is approval of minutes, and we were emailed them by the clerk. So
Yep.
is there anyone that would
I
like
don't have
to?
the date, but I would move for their approval as presented.
Support that.
Is there any discussion?
It was
All those-
Tuesday, November 21st. Is that correct?
No, we emailed out November 9th and December 4th is what we have
Okay.
as finance committee meeting.
Yes. Yep,
Sorry.
that's what I read. No discussion. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Meeting's approved, and it's approved 3-0. We have an agenda in front of us. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Agenda approved 3-0. We're now at the portion of the meeting where we accept public comment. This portion is limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to provide public comment at this time? Okay, there being none, thank you, and thank you for being here. We'll go on to commissioner comments. Are there any commissioner comments?
Yep, look forward to this.
There being none, we'll move forward to the issue at hand. And action item number 1 is actually our MSU extension helper here, John, and I'm going to still have Amrine. How do you do that?
Perfect.
Amrine. Okay, wow. That's so. I think I'd just like you to start with a presentation, and we'll follow up with questions if we have any from there.
Sounds good. Actually, I heard that there were issues with pronouncing my last name. That's not unusual. It's no big deal. It's a good German name. The H is silent. You never see MRH in that order in the English language, and it just starts speaking. So, but yeah, Amrine, H is silent.
Okay.
So I've been with MSU. I'm going to start with a little bit of an introduction of myself, a little bit of the work that I do, and how that connects to what it is that you're working on. And then I've got a couple of proposals, sounds too formal of a word, but a couple of thoughts of ways that we might be able to assist you in your decision. So, I've been with Extension in this role in education with county government for 25 years. Mostly working with commissioners, mostly at that higher level structure and function, mostly finance from the commissioner level, and not so much at the departmental level and who exactly does what kinds of things. I've done some review. I've looked at minutes of your meetings for the last couple or 3 months. I skimmed the Raymond report, so I've got a little bit of a sense at this point of what's in there. And really, as some background here, all but a handful of the financial functions in county government belong to the Board of Commissioners. And there are a few that are specifically assigned to the county clerk and the clerk's office. And over the years, and I was sharing with Kathy earlier, that this is pure speculation on my part. Well, I'll give you a little of the history and the speculation. County government in Michigan started with a constitution in the early 1830s, 1830, that neighborhood. And it wasn't until roughly 40 or 50 years later, I don't remember the exact date, that the legislature passed a law that gave counties the authority to hire whoever you needed to do the work. Which says to me there's a good chance that up until that point, pretty much all of the work was being done by the elected board, which was the Board of Supervisors at that time, and the 5 elected officials. But there wasn't a lot of elected staff up until that point. So we have a structure based from the early 1800s that we're working with today. And whether or not that's the best structure, I'm not here to say, but it's different from what we see just about every place else in the world around us. So one of the places where I don't have a lot of real close experience, but I've kind of paid attention to over the years, are counties as they're in that transition. Many, as they got to the point that they needed an administrative structure of some sort, look to usually clerks, occasionally treasurers, and said, can we give you a little extra money and have you do this for us? I can't say whether that's worked well or not. I have a little bit of concern about that from the, one elected group and an elected and assigning responsibilities and the possibility of incompatible offices. I've done a couple of searches of Attorney General opinions, and that has apparently never been addressed. It's not a huge issue, but it gives me a little discomfort. But that has worked in a lot of counties for a long time, and then as they've grown and gotten to the point where they said, we need a full-time person, we need somebody who's handling all of the details that we as the Board of Commissioners are responsible for, they have then transitioned into that, having an administrator or a controller. I think Wayne is, there are a couple, Wayne and McComb have not elected executives. That's a whole other ballpark I don't think people are interested in looking at this point. I'll find out in just a minute. And so in that transition, I looked at other counties across the state with similar population and similar general fund revenue to what you have here in Leelanau. There's nobody exactly the same. The group is kind of spread, but I think it would give us a group of folks that would give some good advice. Many of them have been through that transition from we're paying the clerk to do some of the work to now we're going to have an administrator, and what has that process looked like. And I have a list of 2, 4, 6, 8 counties. Most of them are northern Lower Peninsula. A couple of other folks who I know have been administrators. One has been a deputy in a large county, was an administrator in another a little bit smaller than that county, and is now back in the first county as administrator. So out of that group of 8 counties, I know most of the board chairs and administrators. And so while my emphasis has been in governance primarily at the board level, how does a board, whether it's local government or nonprofit, how do you do your job? What is your job? What are those key points that you need to really focus on? And I was telling Doug earlier, I actually put together, I looked at 8 models of governance. You may be familiar with John Carver's policy governance model. We found that some of the concepts we were teaching were ones that Carver promotes in that model. That model doesn't fit well in a lot of situations. And the ones that I looked at, I finally wound up with a big sheet of paper and writing down their key points, which range from 2 to 15 or something. And when I got all done, I had 10. I resisted the urge to call them commandments. But I call them components of extraordinary governance. So that's kind of where most of my effort has been, and I do that work both for local government boards, authority boards, nonprofit boards, and so on. Happy to talk about that in more detail later. I also have worked for about 25 years with an organization called the Northern Michigan Counties Association. Started in the late 70s by 2 county commissioners and someone from, a couple of guys from MSU Extension. And it's an 8 times a year gathering of representatives from counties, basically what one of my nonprofit friends calls Knuckles in the Lower Peninsula. And through that experience is where I've met and built some relationships with these folks who are currently administrators and county board chairs. And I think those are the folks who are in a similar size, several of whom have been either recently or up to maybe 25 years ago through a transition from clerk and treasurer handling the details to having some type of administrative structure. So essentially my offer to you then is to communicate with those folks. I think I can have a phone call with each of them. I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks, I don't know their schedules, and to be able to bring back to you then what their process was like, how well that's worked, pros and cons of their structure, what they learned as they were making that transition. I don't know how far each of them looked at other counties to see what they were doing. They may have some background data or information, pros and cons as well. So that's kind of the first offer, is to bring that knowledge back to you for a future meeting. The second one is, as Kathy and Deb and I and Jim Berkey had talked, if you feel that there's a need at any point in this process to have a facilitated conversation, whether that's leadership within the county, amongst the board, a group put together from both of those directions. I had a short conversation a couple of weeks ago with Beth Frycookie, who is based in our Kalkaska office. I've done a little facilitation over the years. Beth is really an expert in that area, and she's indicated a willingness to consider, if that sounds useful to you, we can work on that. That one, let me back up a step here too. Because we are a county department, because we are partially county funded, we really think of ourselves as part of county government. And so in all of our services, there's an element where we might charge an organization outside county government, where we'll come in and do it, and we're not going to charge them. For example, today, short drive up here, and I prefer to be in the room with people. You know, when Alpena County called me a few years ago and said, we want that presentation on the administrative structures. And you can do it by Zoom, because we've got the equipment now. I said, yeah, 6 hours on the road, we'll do that. But as much as possible, I'll come directly to you. So for what I'm talking about doing for you, there's no fee involved in this. If we get into that facilitated conversation, we do have a process there. There is a level up to which that we do for counties and no cost. And then beyond that, it gets very complicated. And somebody else will do those calculations. I'm also going to take a look. I've got a few of the notebooks. We used to do a program called County Budget Finance in the spring following the new commissioners meeting. And that one and one that we did for board chairs, attendance was dropping off in the early 2000s. I think the last county budget finance we did was about 2009, maybe 2011. But I've got notebooks from those. I'm going to also look in there and see what I can find that might be helpful. I think that's basically what I wanted to share with you. At this point, I would just like to open it up, as Doug said, and questions you might have, whatever conversation around this whole subject. Where would you like to go? What would you like us to do to help you out?
I'm especially interested in you bringing us back the procedures and processes that you were speaking about and what were used.
From the other counties.
I guess I would add to that, one of our, like, if I look down our plan, and our first thing was like deciding a governance model to begin with. And-
Right.
And so dovetail with that, I guess I'd be looking
That'd be
for,
the number one.
yeah, I mean, 'cause that's, we can't even take step 2 until we get step 1 done, and that is, are we looking at continuing with the existing structure? And I guess I shouldn't say existing because we have a temporary structure right now, but I will say traditional structure of administrator with a finance department reporting to them and the administrator reporting to the board. The CFO structure, which has 2 direct reports, not the controller, but a CFO. And then the third option that we discussed is a CFO slash administrator, which is not extremely different than option number 1, but it requires a higher level of finance expertise on the administrator's part. And I think we need to almost, I mean, again, the journey is exactly great to hear. I agree 100% with Commissioner Lautner, but that's the very first decision we have to make, so we know who we're hiring and what. And so would what you're doing bring some of that information together as well?
Going into those conversations, I really see 2 major pieces. One is that structure.
Mm-hmm.
How did they decide how they were going to do it structurally?
Mm-hmm.
What pros and cons might they have heard from folks in other counties they talked to at the time? And also as a part of that, how has it worked for them since? Have there been some challenges, smooth sailing? If so, what makes it go well? The second piece then is going to be more of the detail. What's the easiest way for you to handle it? Who does it? How do you organize the workflow? And what additional staff do you need then to make that all work smooth? What I'm kind of seeing is the second piece. Very well may get into it and they may go, oh, you missed a point there, John. We also need to talk about whatever.
And I think our whole board would appreciate both of those pieces.
Yeah.
As our representative for Northern Lakes Community Mental Health, we've been struggling for 6 years about the carbon level. I don't think there's much interest in resurrecting that here. But I'd like to hear both the other 2 pieces.
And honestly, the Carver model has its own. I was part of a church that used it, and it was marvelous. That was a few years ago. Anyway.
So there's been an interest expressed by the full board to hear what you have to say next time. So I know that would, I don't know if we want to set next meeting date as after. Do we have a long update on the progress report? Because okay, if we can go to that, I want to try and set the meeting date while John is here so that we can find a way. And then we may have to be a little creative about this because do we do that I mean, normally you would hear this, our whole thing we just said is the finance committee meets before the executive. And so I'm looking for some input on a structure there because.
Either way,
I mean, what we could do is hear the report at the executive committee meeting, which we all would hear it then, and then have a chance to answer questions, and then have a finance committee meeting following that executive meeting, and where we could further digest the information we've received and the other commissioner comments that happened during the regular meeting. So is that,
I guess it's a possibility.
is that,
Could I interject with the
Sure.
So John would come to executive, and if the executive directed the finance to continue,
yeah, I'm making the assumption that that's going to happen, but I mean, if it doesn't, then, yeah, I don't have another meeting, so.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
the full board might want to continue as a full board with regard to, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just saying it.
Yeah, it's what, as directed,
Or
correct.
time-wise, do we want to have it before the executive and then move it to executive? That's the other option, is for finance to hear it first.
I don't know why finance would have to hear it first. I think this is,
Have to.
I think the whole board would like to hear it.
I'm fine with that. I think we do that, and I guess, I mean, and I'm not sure of the understanding, but I guess probably the executive would have to tell us to stop doing what we're doing. But that's, yeah, if that happened, it happened. So either way, I think the executive, and so let's look at, while you're here, I'm going ahead, but
So John, what kind of timeline do you need to put something together? Because our next executive session is next Tuesday, and I don't know that that's fair.
no, it'd be the one after,
So-
it'd be the one after that.
So then we would be looking at, I believe, Tuesday, February 13th.
I'm better on a 24-inch screen than I am.
And we would normally put you at the beginning of that meeting, because that's the surest time we know when something happens. But after that, you don't know. So that would,
I think we could make February 13th work.
And
It'd
that's
be-
typically a 9:30.
9:30 now,
Meeting.
yes, yep. Smile, Commissioner Hempler. So 9:30 on the February 13th? And then,
I was optimistically hoping that I could make the phone calls and gather this input in a couple of weeks' time. I like that, having a little extra time.
And by February 13th, it's sunny and warm in Leelanau County, so
that's right, yeah.
My birthday's the 14th, so I remember February pretty well.
Okay, are there any further questions for John at this point?
So, I look forward to that.
Thank you. Then, Kathy, if you want to, would please give us an update on your applicant situation.
I've got 2 appointments set up tomorrow, and I and Deb were copied in on the initial
Mhm.
dump of resumes, but I've got 2 candidates coming in. I've reached out to 3. Third candidate is not communicating by phone or email, so I'm not sure, and I've checked with Darcy to see if there's a disconnect on information, but we match on everything, so I'm not sure if there's no interest any longer, but I did receive a couple more application resumes today. One is looking for part-time work, and it's really, I mean, I'll talk to the individual because I think the credentials are interesting, but I haven't extended that just came
Mhm.
today, I think. But new news, I now have 2 openings in my office for clerks. So my account clerk that I have for a year now is doing a lateral transfer to the treasurer's office. So I'll be looking for 2 individuals.
So do we have a second posting up right now, or is that going to happen?
We just yesterday put,
News as it is.
yeah, and we just posted on the ticker, both the Traverse City and the Leelanau ticker, to get more exposure out. So if the resumes that Kathy doesn't already have, hopefully this will generate another round of interest.
Do we go to like Indeed or anything else on those?
We did post on Indeed,
Okay.
as I understand. That's where some of these resumes have come from.
Okay,
I've got a couple from Indeed. One is the one that's not responding to me.
okay.
It's a bit disconcerting because we know from what we've heard from Steve Peacock, what John and Deb and I have discussed, is that anyone with government experience is going to be unicorn in this world. And that's what I would love to see on a resume. I'm not seeing any. I'm really not seeing any full accounting background. I have a lot of servers, and, but I can train people if I find somebody with a work ethic that would lend itself to attention to detail. There might be a potential there, so.
The couple that you're going to interview, do they have any accounting background that you have?
The one especially has some AP background
Mhm.
that right now,
Mhm.
I'll fill the AP position first
Mhm.
because that's my clerk that's trained, and I can do both jobs, I've done both jobs, but there's only so many hours in a day for me.
Gotcha.
is there a contingency plan for how we're going to get through with, if we bribe the treasurer to give us some of the clerk for a bit while we transition?
We haven't, it is such new news, we're in less than 24 hours of being told this, but I have accelerated a few projects in the office while I still have her services. And she's knocking it out, and that will help alleviate a good portion of some of the more detailed work that I just don't have those hours to spend on, so. I'm monopolizing the few days I have left.
I'm not sure I'm comfortable using the word bribe in this meeting.
Yeah, that is
maybe we can talk to him nicely and see if.
Influence? is that
Influence,
it?
yes, yeah, maybe something other than that. Strike that word for the record, please, yeah.
And there's also, I'm sorry, but John alluded to it, there is conflict of interest between offices. Finances, expenditures, and treasurer's office revenues. And AG does say that that is a conflict of interest. I know that when I first looked at working at the county years ago, I thought I'd really like to go to the treasurer's office, but I was precluded from applying because I was also a treasurer for a township. That's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
So you have to watch those things.
Sure.
And I would be remiss if I didn't bring that to your attention, which I have before in other meetings. So
You're comfortable in getting through the near term then, or do we need to?
we will make it work.
Thank you, Kathy.
We'll make it work. Let's all remain calm.
Yep.
Mr. Chair?
Just,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. We also have a very unique candidate that we've been looking at for HR who also has some financial background and may be able to be a team player. It's not accepted, has not accepted the offer yet, but we have had that conversation. So I just want to at least put that out there. It is still very tentative, but it may provide a unique opportunity. So I just I wanted to at least say something so
Right.
that there was at least an acknowledgement of it, but it is not a done deal. So we will
It's not
have
eggs
to
in a
see how
basket.
things, yeah.
So has Kathy seen that resume?
She has not.
Yeah.
Because this was really more of an
Okay.
HR position, individual that has some excellent county government experience.
I was facetious when I mentioned about the treasurer, but we do have, if we've got an employee that's shifting, I think we do need to work with, as a team to make sure
Right.
we don't let people move before we're ready to replace them. And I suspect the treasurer, I mean, I've already had a little bit of a conversation with the treasurer about that. So with that, so we don't create a
Right.
gap without the ability to do something.
Right. Commissioner
Well,
Lautner?
yeah, a couple of different things. I guess number one is that if this person, I don't know if they've got a degree in finances or if they're interested in working in finances, that candidate might want to interview for the clerk of finance position instead of HR, since we do have an internal candidate with a master's degree in HR that also applied for HR position. Just a thought. On the other hand, it brings me to the question we've asked repeatedly, publicly, in meetings, about whether our HR is going to be full-time. So is our HR position a full-time position as HR, or are they a half-time position as HR, half-time finance, or half-time something else? We haven't, all of that is financial implications. And the other thing.
The only thing I would say to that, I guess, in that pending like further fleshing out of our rules, I think per our kind of discussion today, there was a fair amount of emphasis on we are given very specific tasks as subcommittees, and those are the only tasks that we're to plan. So I don't, trying to be respectful of what we did today and let it flesh out, so
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I guess I just really would like a date, because every time we bring these up, I just keep getting kicked down the road. And I brought it up several times, and several times I've been told that, well, this isn't the meeting. So is that
Yeah.
Tuesday? Are we going to hash some of these things out Tuesday at executive then? Or, because we need to decide how that's going to play out, because it looks to me like we're kind of doing this based on personalities or talents, perhaps might be a better word. So we're looking at talent saying, well, maybe this here, and we've jumped parks now temporarily on planning, but we should get that figured out. And when is that date? When do we make those decisions?
I guess I don't know, except only to know that it's not here, I guess, in my mind right now. I mean, it's not at this committee meeting, because I think, we heard pretty loud and clear from our general board, they want to maintain, control over anything but specific tasks given to us. And I'm getting a smile from Commissioner Elgire there, but I'm trying to be respectful of what we did today to move forward with the so I don't have a definite answer to that question. The only answer I can think of is I don't think it's here.
Well, and I have an answer for that. If you requested it's on the agenda for the executive board, it'll be there. And we don't have a policy of saying
Right.
if commissioners want something on there, they can have it, so.
Well, I didn't know it would be up to myself. I don't set staffing levels, this board does. And I brought it up several times publicly. So that's your request, we'll get it on the agenda.
So that can be addressed then, so. So, we have our update, we're at set next meeting date, which we kind of, I guess my only question is there any purpose in meeting prior to the executive or hearing this report? Does anyone see any need? You know, what that would do is anything that came out of our meeting would go to the next executive meeting, which is actually March sometime. So just kind of making sure unless we held a special meeting. So is everyone comfortable with that timeframe?
I am, and I think the only reason to meet is if Kathy or the finance team said they need us to meet for something.
Or the committee of the whole was called and called us into action for something, right? I mean.
Yeah, I would have preferred action in January myself. I don't really hate seeing this pushed off to February, but,
I agree. I want to move faster than this, especially what we heard today, that we're
Yeah.
taking too long to get things done, but,
Could we do a committee of the whole meeting in the third week of January?
I wonder if we can get the information.
Just a special committee of the whole with John there.
now we got to look at John's schedule again and timeline. He said 2 weeks.
Right.
Let's look at our
So
schedule. I mean,
that's only
I
third.
don't disagree with the idea, because
Okay.
So,
Could I add something if you're considering some of the leftover business from 2023 that the full board, executive committee on the whole wanted to tackle, I believe, was your capital outlay for 2024.
That's
You got you an operational budget, so you can start the year and all the bills can be paid and payroll can be met. I do work at that. So at your capital outlay, you still have to fund the rest of your broadband and your HVAC.
and we don't know if we will have answers by then, but I guess you could put it on the agenda and take it off if we didn't get and that's this.
We met yesterday with Chris and Patricia, and we think we're going to have it by third week. Patricia was concerned about, we've taken it off the agenda a couple of times, and let's not put it on an agenda till we know what's going to happen.
Sure, and I'm just talking about funding, in applying the last year ARPA monies they're sitting. And,
Right.
You know, that type of thing, and.
Yeah, we were waiting for that last piece from broadband to be able to make a whole decision. So I guess it'd be the week of the 22nd. Is that what you're thinking? Does that give you enough time, John? At least maybe even later in that week? I guess I'm open to whatever. That week doesn't look bad to me on any day right now, so. We could do a committee of the whole, if possible, discuss budget things, and then schedule a finance committee right after that.
And it might not be a bad idea just because of the magnitude of the discussion on your capital outlay. That would really bog down one of your executive meetings, but
Yep.
it's doable. Whatever you-
Right, right.
whatever you choose to do.
But you're right, I mean, that's gonna be an hour and a half of an executive meeting to get through those capital outlay items, so I'm actually, that's a good path, I'm okay. John, what does your schedule look like?
That is just about 3 weeks away. I'm hopeful that we can have it put together by then. I'm available currently Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday that week, 22nd, 3rd, or 4th, 25th and 26th. Travel plans, you never know, could
Yeah.
open up, may not.
How do those dates, give them as long as we can we schedule the 24th if people, I'll give you every day if we can, maybe, John? How does your calendar look time for the 24th?
24th is good for me.
24th is good.
So the only thing, I guess, you can't respond, Gwen, but you can nod and tell me if your calendar to 24th. What's that?
I'm assuming by that you could do morning?
Yeah, we can do morning. So,
Oh, is it from 2 to 4?
so tentatively schedule a committee of the whole for 9:30 on the 24th to hear from John and to tackle possibly capital outlays. And then, are you on the health board, Tony? So
Yes.
how does that work with you with finance committee afterwards?
I'm free till 2, and the
Okay.
meeting is here that day.
So if we spent 2 hours on that meeting, that's 9:30, 11, we should be able to do a finance committee immediately following. Does that
I
work?
think so.
I like that idea. Thank you for that suggestion because it gets us moving forward faster.
Okay.
And maybe we can bring some recommendations to executive in February then.
Right.
Does that work? Okay. So that is set meeting date. That brings us down to public comment, second public comment. Does anyone have any public comment they'd like to share with us at this time?
We thought we public commented them out.
It's an extreme surprise, but you're welcome to come on up. I'm shocked. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Carrie Onan, Centerville Township, and just a couple questions actually from the last, and I'll have several questions pertaining to what y'all just went over at the next 5 minutes, whatever next meeting, I think. But for today, let me see, in the last meeting, will the public have access to the binder the presenter just let you guys see for the first time? Will we have access to that binder? I'm talking about the committee of the whole. The survey.
Survey?
It'll be posted on the website. You can come to my office and
The
get
binder, okay, so that's for sure. And, thank you. And then I might have misunderstood the presenter from the prior meeting, but I thought I heard him say something about his scale of 1 to 10, that process was not entirely objective. I really appreciated Commissioner Kramer's efforts to find out, well, where was his objective data? Because some of us, no matter what the cultural shift has been over the last years, decades, whatever, some of us really do want to see some left brain, objective information. So what I heard was a very well-meaning and experienced person in giving his opinion of everything. And had he's not still here. I was going to quote him on something. I don't know if I can find it. But, he talked about however many seconds it is where your perception turns into your reality. And I would like to remind him directly that he's not outside of that. And so as he sits in front of someone else, which some of us took great exception to, because as I explained before, I know as a massage therapist that I can lead that person without saying a word. Or applying a massage. Okay, just being in the same room with someone, you can lead them. And I don't think he would deliberately do that, but he comes with all of his preconceptions. And we got that. So I'm not saying that what he brought wasn't of value. I'm sure we'll get some value out of it. But I sure would like to see some kind of objective application to the information he was presenting us back, because it just flat out wasn't, it was an opinion. A big, long, well-paid-for opinion. And that doesn't mean we all can't, or you all can't make great use of that input. I think we can. Might as well, because we paid for it, right? But I just want that on the record, that some of us just really didn't go, nod our heads and say, oh, yeah, he's absolutely right. He must be right. He took all that time. Now, come on. A lot of us really do respect objective approaches, no matter how emotional, especially the emotional topics. So that was all I have to say today. Thank you so much for your consideration and your time.
Thank you.
It was 30 seconds, by the way.
I have 30 seconds.
No, He said, that was 30 seconds was the answer you were looking for.
Right. Where you shift between perception and, yeah, and I've heard that, and I agree with that. It's just, it applies to him as well.
Yep.
So, any other public comment? There being none, I'd look for commissioner comments from anyone.
Thank you.
There being none, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
We are adjourned.